let's break down the attribution modeling types, because in order to be able to drive your business forward and have attribution be one of those tools that's going to help you get the data-driven insights you need to understand which attribution model to use and when to use it. Because it's like you're a handyman and you got this toolbox. Well, the different tools are needed for different jobs that you're trying to do in marketing. So you understand what job you're trying to do, you pick the right tool, which is the right attribution model, so that you're measuring correctly and then guiding your performance and then making the right strategic bets with your budget and then seeing the results of them. But if you have the wrong attribution model, you're going to think that maybe you failed or maybe you did better than you should, and it's a mess. So let's talk about all the different. So in this video, we're going to break down common attribution models and when you should use them and the trade-offs and considerations with each. Now, when you're thinking about attribution model types, there's single click, where we're just going to look at one click and score the revenue according to that one click point in time. There's multi-touch, which means we're going to look at all the clicks or a certain subset of the clicks, and that's when we're taking multiple touch points. On top of that, then we want to look at the revenue. Are we going to count the revenue fully for each touch point, which we normally do with a single point model, but maybe not with a multi-touch model? Or are we going to count full revenue for each touch point? Because that's what the ad platforms do, and that's why the ROAS looks so great in there, even though it's not. Additionally, another thing is, what point in time are we going to use? Are we going to use the time of the click or the time of the sale? Facebook used to use time of the click. They moved to time of the sale, and they use full revenue credit. So based on that, let's break down how Facebook, So there's a lot to consider, and a lot of it depends on what the goal is of your campaign. But before we get into that, let me explain how Meta does attribution, because that'll help. Meta uses last touch attribution, which means out of all the clicks in the journey, which could be one, but is likely to be 7 to 20 touch points, they look at the very last one and they have horse blinders on. They just look at which one occurred on their platform, which I don't blame them. But for you as a marketer, that might be a big issue. So again, you have a long set of touch points. Meta says, what was the last one that occurred on our platform? And when they choose to give attribution is when they detect a sale. Now, they either detect a sale because someone hit the thank you page and then their pixel was on the page, pixel being a little piece of code, and it sends it to Facebook and says, hey, a sale just occurred. And or because you pushed up your sales into Facebook, Facebook saw a sale and said, look, I have a sale and this is who it was from. And then they find them in Facebook and look back in time from that, looking for some way to give themselves credit. That's how it works. Now, they look back 1 week for a click or 1 day for a view is the standard setting. And then however much revenue you pushed in for that sale, they tend to give that much revenue as credit. So this is what's known as a last touch model, single channel. So if the only marketing you do on Facebook is come buy my stuff with direct response ads, and it's a very low price point, under $50, then that model could probably work if you only look at the clicks, because you have a small price point, so there's less consideration. You're only marketing on Facebook, so if the conversions are happening elsewhere or being driven elsewhere and then finishing on Facebook, that's not really a concern. And you don't have to worry about a convoluted customer journey because it's such a small price point. It really shouldn't be a long customer journey. Like, let's pretend you're selling toothbrushes, even if they're like expensive, like $20 ones. It'd just be like, hey, come buy my toothbrush. It's great because XYZ, it fixes blah, blah, blah. You could use Facebook's attribution then. For everyone else, you can't use it. Here's why. If you have a sales consideration cycle or a customer journey of greater than a week, the last click within the Facebook ad platform way of scoring your revenue is going to ignore the clicks that happened more than a week out. And those are the most important clicks. The most important thing is, how did I find some brand new person scrolling on Facebook to suddenly become interested in me and then enter my web of retargeting, emails, SMS, all that good stuff? How did that happen? That's what you need to know first, is the top of the funnel, because you can't scale bottom of the funnel. You can optimize it and grow it. You can optimize and grow it some. You can make it better. But if you don't have enough new lifeblood coming in at the top of the funnel, all the bottom of the funnel tweaks you're going to do are only going to get you so far. They're not going to get you exponential scale. Exponential scale happens at the top of the funnel, which if it's greater than a week to buy, you're blind, even within Facebook's very biased point of view. The second, so that's if you're using a last touch single channel. So I hope that kind of explains that. The other thing with Facebook to touch on is view-based attribution. Now, views sometimes are very relevant. If you have a killer video that you're placing on retargeting near the bottom of the funnel, it's likely that that video has more influence than the clicks are going to track. And therefore, some of the view attribution is relevant. The issue is that sometimes Facebook view attribution can wildly overstate things. I've done case studies where we add in all the revenue attributed from Facebook clicks by Facebook, Facebook views, then we throw in Google, then we throw in email, and it's, I'm not kidding you, in a month, maybe 1 million or two more, maybe 20, 30% more than the brand actually made. So that's the issue. It can dramatically overstate its performance. Why that's a risk, you see this sky-high ROAS, and then you're looking at your top of the funnel, click-based attribution outside the window, and it looks so low that you're like, I don't want to spend more on this top of the funnel. It's only getting to 1.4 ROAS. I want to spend on this 14x ROAS. And then you spend more, and you're like, I can't scale it. I don't know why I can't scale it. You can't scale it because the data's inaccurate, and the clicks that led to that view at the top of the funnel aren't being attributed inside Facebook. So while it's overly optimistic for the bottom of the funnel, it's overly pessimistic at the top of the funnel. So we need to fix that with our attribution model. So now that we've set that stage, let's talk about the different attribution models. There's in-ad platform last click. That's what we just discussed with Meta. There's in-platform last view, which we also just discussed with that. Start that one again. There's in-platform view, which we also just discussed using Meta, but that is also the same if it's Google, Microsoft, Pinterest, they all do the same. There's a first click model, which just looks at the very first click. Now, this is a single touch point model, which means we're just going to take all your revenue that you have. Let's say you have $1,000 you made in a day. And we're going to look at all the first clicks and divvy up those $1,000 of revenue among the first clicks that happen from those customers. We're going to ignore all the rest. Now, the reason this is powerful is a first click is tough to earn, way tougher to earn when it's someone brand new, cold traffic. And then on top of that, getting them through all the ways they might fall off and not convert to a customer is challenging and hard work. That's why we're marketers. And get paid to figure that out. So when it happens, you want it to be scored correctly. And so that revenue technically never would have happened without the first touch. So strictly as a marketing performance indicator, first click model is a great thing to use for top of the funnel, because you earned a click, not just a view, not just a scroll by, not just a contemplation, not just a, that's interesting. They actually took time to click and go look at whatever you have behind that click. So it's a strong initial indication of interest. And then taking all the revenue and scoring it on one touch point, we're not trying to create a CFO panel that attributes for ad spend and ROAS accounting wise. We're trying to give you guidance, strategic guidance for your marketing. So take all the revenue, look at the first clicks, divvy it up, because then the highest amount of revenue driven is a place where you want to place more of your bets, more of your budget on top of the funnel. So that's why a one-click model cross-channel is a great thing for top of the funnel. Second attribution model I'd like to talk about, not one that's commonly used, but is vital for people doing lead gen or people with multi-touch funnels, is new lead first opt-in. New lead first opt-in says, tell me the click that got someone to first submit their email address into my CRM. And that could be however it's going to happen. Now, this one is important because when you're trying to sell something expensive, like a coaching program or a subscription into a course or education, or you're a subscription brand or a higher priced e-com brand, and you're trying to give a secret deal and you want to capture the first party data because it's going to be easier to retarget them and a lot cheaper to retarget them if you can get their email address, along with the fact that it's owned media. You can then email and SMS them once you get their email. So the very first offer that gets that email and the traffic source and the targeting is insanely valuable, particularly for the very first time they submit. So this attribution model does require savvy use of first-party data. You need to be able to pull in CRM data and cross-reference it to figure out what click really led to the email submission that made them first appear in the CRM, not reappear, but first appear. What's up? Pause. Ralph interruption, Brandon. Sorry.
Sorry, Brandon.
So this is another multi-channel single touch point model. Look at all the marketing, look at all the new leads, cross-reference to figure out which marketing drove the new leads, and then once those leads entered your CRM, how much then cross-reference against your first-party data, shopping cart revenue, and determine which new leads turned into revenue, which is most important, and score it that way. Clicks that generated the leads, how much downstream revenue eventually occurred. The benefits of this is that it's a touch point in time that you can validate against your CRM that it really occurred. So it's super accurate. The other benefit is things that get new leads to opt in are very different than sometimes than things that get them to first become aware or get them to buy once they're comfortable. It's a major conversion point. I don't know about you, but when I'm sitting there and someone's trying to get my email, I gotta really think about it because once I submit that email, I'm gonna get barraged with emails, I'm gonna get SMS. Retargeting is gonna haunt me throughout the web. So that's a major conversion point in the journey. Even for e-com, if you're running a deal like a BOGO, free shipping offer, join my exclusive list for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, all those different holiday deals that you want to make exclusive, exclusive to anyone who will opt in, that's a valuable way to collect that data because then you can email and SMS them when Black Friday, Cyber Monday occurs and the ad prices are through the roof. You can be just, doing almost free marketing to them, which is more likely to make them convert, but also keep your NCACs down reasonable so that you're going to show a profit on your ad spend because you've already captured the click and therefore we can attribute that revenue downstream in the new lead attribution model. So that's a powerful one, but it requires the right first-party data integration and the right technical know-how on how to map the clicks to the new leads. But if you're doing those type of marketing, it's a vital way to look at it. And again, if the CFO is looking at that, you can say, well, what about these other touch points? That's not for the CFO. It's for the marketer to have a signal as to what should I show people once I've gotten their awareness from first click and I look at that data, then what's the next click? What marketing then drove them to opt in? So now that we've covered first click and we've covered new lead, last click now does come into play. This is where you should evaluate your retargeting and your direct response. Because at that point, they've already become aware of your brand and or they're already on your email or SMS list. At that point, then it becomes, hey, I want to get you to buy. And so that is when a multi-channel last click model is appropriate for that one use case and those type of campaigns only. Because then you're trying retargeting. You're doing, hey, you left this in your shopping cart. Hey, I'll throw in free shipping. You have these different type of offers you're going to run. Well, then which one works the best? Last click is the good judge for that. You need it to be multi-channel, however, because let's suppose that you're running you're paying for ads on Meta and you're doing the retargeting, and there was a click 6 days ago on a retargeting and nothing happened. And then you come in and then they actually close on some killer email you sent 6 days later. Well, there's a signal for the media buyer that, hey, this helped get them there. But then the email, actually made the true conversion. So you know that when you collect leads or people on your list, you're going to want to send that email consistently each time if it's your highest converting one. We get lost in that. We start sending emails all the time, new topics. Go back and look at the highest converting from last click. You want all the new, fresh, paid content to get those good emails. And that's how you start to reverse engineer customer acquisition using these attribution models. What first got people aware, first click? What got them to join my list, if you're the type that does list building? If not, ignore that one. And then what closed them? So those are the single touch point models. There is one other one that is sometimes very valid, particularly if you have a bigger email list of at least 50,000, and that's re-opted. This is for when you have a large list and you've only converted some of it, or maybe most of it, but now it's gone stagnant and dormant. And you're trying to figure out, how am I going to reactivate these people? Particularly if you're doing it in the fall, right before Black Friday, Cyber Monday, or whatever your buying period is, where it's coming up on a holiday and you're like, man, I got all these dead leads. They're not opening the emails. They're not opening the SMS. What should I do? And how am I going to track if it works? One way to do this, upload that email list, target it in Meta and on Google, and then track trying to get them to re-opt in or re-energize into your marketing. This can work with your opt-outs. If you've got, 10, 20,000 opt-outs, sometimes I've seen people with a million of opt-outs, aggressive marketers. You can target them to get them to re-opt in for your list. And oftentimes they will, because maybe it was just a bad time to buy and you were bombing them with emails. I don't know. But if you do that, the attribution model to use is re-opt them, to say, hey, they were on my list, they're dead. Now they re-opted in and they're alive again. Did they end up spending as a result of this ad that specifically targeted either my opt-out list or my email list that never converted? So this works great when the marketing is going to make them submit an email again. So that's a unique one, but it can be very powerful in the right use case. So that covers all the single point attribution models, single touch point. Now we got to talk multi-touch. This is when things can get more complex. Also, it's when things can get more valuable in some cases. Sometimes it can get more confused though. So let's break down how this works. Multi-touch attribution. The goal of multi-touch attribution originally was, show me all the touch points and I'm just going to spend more where the return on ad spend is the highest, because that's going to drive my business. I hope, as the earlier parts of this have explained, that's not going to work, because the highest value things, particularly when you're looking in the ad platforms, the highest value things occur outside that 1 week window, the top of the funnel. And so if you're looking at a multi-touch, you're looking at all your ads within the ad platforms, that doesn't work. They don't use multi-touch, they use single touch. So the promise of multi-touch attribution is, by looking at all the touch points, we're going to be able to assess everything fairly and accurately. So I've been doing multi-touch attribution for over a decade. And I find that single touch points, as we described earlier, are more directionally accurate and give more easy, accessible guidance and insight, because you match the model to the intention of that specific campaign. If it's brand new top of the funnel eyeballs, you use first click and you use new visit percentage to determine what you're going to do and where you're going to spend. If you're driving new leads, as I explained, you're going to use the first opt-in new lead model. If it's retargeting bottom of the funnel, you're going to use last click. And if you happen to have a massive list, you're going to use re-opt-in. Those 4 touch points still hold up as the best directional guidance. However, CFOs or CEOs, not the marketing teams, do want to make sure that with all this potential inflation from the ad, if you're just looking in the ad platforms, Google, Meta, and then let's say you're looking in your Klaviyo email, and then you're looking at your SMS conversions, and then Google saying direct, you add all them up and it's way over your revenue. CFOs get nervous about giving more budget there. So what a multi-touch fractional credit model will do is even out all the touch points and the value of the sale among all the touch points. Now, this will then may mean that your attributed revenue matches your shopping cart. I find that's a great way to make sure the data is accurate, because a multi-touch shared credit model should come very close to matching your shopping cart revenue. And then, hey, I'm tracking pretty much everything. So that's great. However, strategically, it'll just tell you as a whole, overall in your marketing, looking at all the tangled journeys, am I making money on this or not? Which is valuable to know. But from an insight perspective, I don't find that spending just based on a multi-touch, multi-channel attribution ROAS alone is good enough. It'll tell you this. So let's say we have 3 campaigns and we're using multi-touch, multi-channel, shared credit attribution. You sell something for $100 and you got 10 touch points in the journey. Let's just say we're looking at 1 sale and that's all you had. Well, each touch point would get $10. So if you're looking at that, in that model, directionally, it does provide strategic guidance, because the highest return on ad spend or the lowest NCAC or the best marketing KPI there is directionally going to tell you that is where you should spend. However, it's not going to tell you where you should spend, because it's unlikely you just liberally do spray and pray marketing and just put the money in there. It means, okay, this one's a winner. Now, where is it a winner? And that's when you got to isolate those different individual touch points to figure out where it's winning the most, and then put your money there and exclude your audiences from the rest of the journey where it's not actually as profitable. So that's when it can be used well. Where it's not a good idea is when you're trying to just spend all the money on the highest ROAS campaigns and not on the lowest. Because in the multi-touch journey, everyone knows retargeting and bottom of the funnel marketing is way easier. It's not easy, but it's a lot easier than top of the funnel. And if your strategy is top of the funnel, I'm using Meta, bottom of the funnel, Google brand, and shopping ads, then from a multi-touch perspective, often Meta is going to look a lot lower in ROAS, if that's what you're using, or higher in NCAC than Google or just doing organic. And then what happens is people won't spend more on top of the funnel if they do that approach. And then they'll be banging their heads wondering why they're not scaling and start blaming the data. It's not the data, it's the methodology and the approach you're using. You're using the wrong the attribution model for the wrong decision. The final attribution model I want to cover is using a multi-channel, multi-touch, full impact. Now, this is when you take every touch point and take the sale price of the item and give it full credit for each touch point. This is good when you're first starting out in attribution, because each ad platform is taking full credit for all these touch points and also taking credit for views that may or may not have influenced the sale. And also just, they're very good at taking credit. And so because of that, if you suddenly come in and get a new attribution tool, and you use multi-touch, multi-channel, shared credit, we're only giving $10 per touch point. Can't you see the difference? The ad platforms are using $100 on cherry picking the bottom of the funnel, and you're dripping out $10 and being way more strict in how you measure. The performance looks terrible at first inside an attribution software, and then that's frustrating. And then you want to make all kinds of dramatic decisions. So I do like a multi-touch, multi-channel, full impact model at first, just so it's fair. So then you can see, well, if I was scoring things based on the ad platforms, what would my performance look like in a multi-channel, multi-touch environment? That's why you need that model, to keep things fair until you have enough data and enough understanding of when to use the right single touch points. So in summary, we covered a lot here. Multi-channel, multi-touch is good at when you're first starting with an attribution tool, so you can have a fair score against the ad platforms while you're learning the different intricacies and applications of the attribution models themselves. Multi-channel shared credit is good for directionally, hey, what's going on? Where's my revenue coming from as a whole? And also to satisfy accuracy and to help your CFO when they want to just do dollars to dollars, because that's how they are. Can't really convince them otherwise. But then the single touch models, when you strategically and match to the intention of the campaign, or where the real marketing performance indicators start to shine, because they're matching your intention with the goal. And that's why I like them when used correctly. Thank you.